Okay, we are
Yay.
live, Mariana. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I have really good news. We are going to be talking for the next few weeks all about how to become a better coach and various aspects of improving your coaching skills and thriving as a coach as well. And because of this, I have with me, and she will be showing up with me um, once to twice a week, I think we have planned, Mariana. And also, she'll be available, no doubt, as well, to answer
Absolutely.
questions about building your coaching skills as well throughout the group. So I'm sure Mariana will pop in. But we have Mariana Wright, who is a coach mentor. Um, and also former president of the ICF and in the Ireland base, and also you have a lot to do with the ICF internationally as well. So she really does know her stuff, and so we're going to have some great conversations. And today, I really just want to talk about how we can become better coaches, Mariana. But I thought, because I'm just running off from memory here from what I know about you, I thought you might do a little bit better job than me of actually explaining your background as well
Certainly.
for people before we move along.
So first of all, I'm in Ireland at the moment, so there's a slight delay on some of the sound, and that's why I think we're kind of technology traveling around the world. Um, I was a real want to save the world kind of person. As a teenager, I was a real environmental campaigner and also a horse fanatic, I think, which is why I love what Vanessa does. So I got on a plane to teach riding before college, and I was going out to Australia. I read the James Lovelock book, the stuff about Gaia, and that blew my mind as an 18-year-old. So studied marine biology and worked for some environmental charities, and really got passionate about the idea of behaviour change.
Mm.
And I was also a bit of a raver at this time. So I ended up writing a PhD about how rave culture changed society and changed our engagement with the environment and our beliefs, and really made us feel like we were part of one another and part of the world. Along the way, I met a lovely man who's from Ireland, and so decided that we'd move out here. And it's one of the first bits of sort of tactical strategic planning that I did, was to train to be a coach, and then being a nerd, I have to do an accreditation. So I did all of this alongside work in London. I was working in the communications field, again, behaviour change. So training to be a coach, doing some travel out to Ireland to mentor on coach training programs, and eventually moved here 10 years ago. And now I'm by the beach in Donegal. I've got 4 horses and lots of other animals, and living the dream. I've got clients around the world, coaching clients. I actually work as a coach as well as my mentoring work. So yeah, kind of
Yeah.
a
And
lovely life.
how did you get involved with this ICF at the time and end up as president of the Ireland branch there? And what do you currently or have done in the past with the ICF internationally? I know you told me recently, I think, that you were in Florida, if I remember
Yeah,
rightly,
yeah.
with them.
So I told you that I was mentoring in Ireland. When I lived in London, I'd fly over for a training program, which meant that I had a network of coaches when I landed. And you know that thing where you're very, very honoured to be invited to volunteer for the board.
Mm.
So and then you realise, however, it was volunteering is a great way to build profile, because people learn to know you, they like you, and they trust you if you're
Mm.
volunteering.
Yeah.
So I was first communications director for Ireland, and then I ended up president here. And I volunteered for a couple of big projects. So I helped organise a massive, an international conference out in Sweden, and I've been asked most recently to do a piece of work on some exam research. But the Florida trip was really key. They invited me. Sometimes you get those emails and you kind of ignore them because you think it's just going to be a survey. Can you help with our research? It's like, yeah, whatevs. And then I actually went back and read it, and it was, would you come to Florida for a few days? And this was February. I think I got the email, in Donegal, which is a bit grey and real wet and cold. I was like, yes.
So
So
Florida sounded very attractive.
sounded attractive. There was a lot of shopping of bikinis and flip-flops, thongs. So out to Florida, and of course it was actually 2 days in a very air-conditioned hotel basement, thrashing through with a group of international coaches. What does it take to be a professional coach? And the interesting thing about that research is after 2 days of hair pulling and frustration and fighting over words and kind of, oh God, how many coaches does it take to change a light bulb? We came up with a series of duties, and it was pretty, I mean, life-changing. For example, I lost 5 stone afterwards because actually it made the penny drop about what it takes. Because to be a coach is not just about talking the talk, it's about actually doing the stuff, walking the walk. I don't believe you can coach effectively unless you are doing the work yourself.
Mm. And so that had you lose weight, 5 stone. I mean, a lot of, I mean, I know what
I'm
that
somewhere
is.
back in the middle now.
Yeah, because I know what that is. That's kind of old school talk for here in Australia, because we ended up moving to kilos. But that's a lot for
It's a
those
lot.
of you in America and Australia still operate at that have, know the kilos.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of weight. I think what the realization was, it was about actually one of the ways that you need to, one of the things you need to do if you want to be a good coach is to model self-care and well-being. That's just one of the things that you need to do.
I love that you bring that up, self-care, because out here in the industry, and I won't talk too much about it, but I do get on a little bit of a roll because I see a lot of internet marketers coming into our
Oh
industry
yeah.
and saying that they're coaches, when the reality is they are actually internet marketers who have done internet marketing courses. But there's always this, from that kind of arena, to me, this idea that we have to hustle, 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 hustle. And yet you're telling us the opposite. You're telling us that as a coach, self-care is crucial, which makes sense because most of us are actually working with people whose lives are out of balance and all the rest of it. And as a coach, we're leading them towards their own realization. And most people realize, don't they, that self-care is key. So it's interesting how this
Absolutely.
idea of hustle got into our industry, which is a complete opposite of, yes, we need to do what we need to do, but the fact that you've brought in we need some self-care as well is so contrary to what many of the industry over, I call them over the other side, are actually saying we need to be like.
I think that it boils down to what your definition of success is. For some people, success involves, the kind of driving around in a flash car with loads of money and fancy watches and all of that, and that with that sort of frenetic lifestyle of working long hours and all of that package. For me, success is having time to go and see my horses. I've got good food to eat. It's not the end of the world if I have a big bill come in, but I've got flexibility and freedom. I wouldn't have left my big job in London to come here if I'd wanted the busy stuff, and but there's other stuff as well. I've been talking to you, Vanessa, about aging parents over the past few days. It's actually, how do you want to live your life? I want to maximize my life and look after myself. So that is one important part of being a coach. I mentor a lot of coaches, and I have to remind them of this because I have a key theme amongst the leaders that we work with is, too busy, stress management, work-life balance, blah, blah, blah. And how can you coach them effectively if you're not authentic? You're not congruent because you're busy working all the hours under the sun. And actually, the thing to realize is when you're a coach, only one element of your work is coaching. There's the whole other stuff of getting the work, administering the work, looking, all of developing your skill set. I've talked about the well-being part. There's a whole other stuff about actually your competency as a coach. So the actual coaching is only, so if you're working, a lot as a coach, all the other stuff has to go somewhere. And I think people forget that bit, which is why this trip to the Florida basement was pretty life-changing for me, because it was the realization of what it takes.
So answering the question for people, how do we become a better coach? I'll let you lead the way because I know that's what people will be asking, because it's what we put up there, how to become a better coach.
Okay, I think it starts off with having an understanding about what good coaching is. So that's probably having experienced coaching. I think you need to have been at the receiving end of some good coaching to really get what it feels to be a good coach. And there are basic structure. Now, as I've said, I'm an ICF coach, an International Coaching Federation coach. So I have a clear set of competencies that I work to. One of the biggest things that I hear amongst the coaches I mentor is something around listening, and also something around contracting. So having an agreement about what you are doing with your client. There are some simple steps to being a better coach. One of the simplest things I think you can do is to get in the practice of recording your sessions. Now, in Europe, we have a whole load of regulation around data management that's
You do,
come in.
yes.
Okay. So this needs to be done, obviously, with permission, and you need to handle the recordings well. But actually taking some time to listen back over your recordings and to reflect. Reflective practice is key here. So you're not just listening, you are thinking, okay, what do I wish I'd said there that I didn't say? What did I miss? What was the underlying theme going on here? What could I have challenged on? What could I have championed on? So you're actually taking time to go back over and to, almost with a red pen, and actually literally I've done it recently with a red pen, to edit what I've said and think, if I did this again, what would I do differently? And to think, what different outcome might we have got. So that's just one of the ways that I think we can work. Obviously I'm a professional mentor, so I can go very deep into this, but we can start to do this work ourselves, and reflective practice is key. Looking back on our work, or thinking, not working back to back with clients, to take some time to just sit and think, okay, what went well there? What would I do differently? What bits are niggling away at me that I could have, talked about? This isn't something that we just do at the beginning of our careers. I'm a master certified coach now, and actually it's even about a month ago, I was sitting with a client who I was giving some feedback on. It was 360 feedback, and the feedback was that he was very defensive. And I was talking through it, saying, well, when you read this about you being, defensive, what's going on for you? And he got really defensive with me. And he was it's like, well, I don't know this, and blah, 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 blah. And this person, well, it must be this person. I know who this is. I know what's going on here. And I had this voice in my head saying, I can't wait to take this to coach supervision. I'm sitting here with a guy who's been told he's defensive, and he's getting defensive about being defensive. I can't wait to take it to supervision. And then I thought, you know what? This is my job. I'm a coach. I have to name it. And I was like, God, I had to say, this is really interesting, because you're reading about you being defensive, and it's almost like I hear you're being defensive, and by saying it out loud, he had the penny dropped for him, but actually it's that articulating the inner voice sometimes that needs to happen. Direct communication.
Do you think there's a bit of boldness in that?
There's definitely boldness, but I see our job as coaches really as, well, one of our jobs is evoking awareness. And if we skirt around the issue, we can't help our clients see it. Sometimes we don't see it. We have to be aware of something if we're going to change it. But this isn't about assuming that you're right. This is about a gentle kind of offering to our clients. It's, I'm wondering if, or it's almost as if blah, 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 or, I've got this thought coming up. Could I be right there? When I say that to you, what's the response?
Yeah.
So it's an evoking, because it's their awareness. We don't know. That they may be right. That person may have got a grudge when they wrote that in the 360. We don't know. Only our clients know.
And I think on some sectors, and for some people, and maybe those who don't get, some great training as well, are under the assumption that we as coaches are there to tell people what to do.
Oh, absolutely.
So I like the way that you put that. It's like, let your little inner voice, but be careful of the way that you bring it up with them, so that we are not telling them you're defensive.
Yes.
You're bringing it up in another way that allows them to question themselves and come up with their own idea that they may be being defensive, or maybe they come up with I know that my mind might be thinking something, and I've put a word on it, but when I don't say it to them and I use like what you've used, they'll come up with a different word. So it's good to let them come up with their word for it, isn't it?
Words mean different things to different people. and actually exactly that. It's an offering, and you may get it wrong. So if it's a light touch, it's no, it's not defensive. It's actually fear, or it's actually, vulnerability or whatever. It allows your client to name for themselves, and that's what's important here.
Yeah.
I think this is particularly important when we're working with intuition. Intuition is actually quite a key coaching competency, and we all have different, beliefs around intuition. But when we are sharing our intuitions, it's a light touch. It's a not assuming we're right, because we might not be right, but also our clients may not be ready to hear it anyway. So it's to give them the respect they deserve, to know, right now, yes, this is ringing some bells, but right now is not the time for them, and that's their choice, because a fundamental belief around coaching is it's our client's agenda. It's not our stuff, it's theirs.
Yeah, exactly. Frida, you've got a few comments. Jill saying, great tip, a coach needs to model self-care. And Frida saying, love that, evoking awareness. I actually really like that as well, evoking awareness. I thought that was such a good way to look at it. So what else do we need to be able to do you feel, for us to become a better coach?
So I talked about the reflective practice. I really believe coaches should be in supervision as well, because that's a very structured form of reflective practice, which enables you to, I work with other groups of coaches. We share, other coaches give a perspective on your work as well. I think one of the things is this realization that it's not just coaching that we need to do. So it's understanding the job. I talked to you in the past, I've got a webinar coming up which will help people really understand these duties and come up with some plans about all the elements, from business to marketing to self-care to developing their competency. It's understanding the roadmap of being a professional coach.
Yes.
So I've talked about recording back and reflecting. I think working with other coaches is really key as well. We can all do it. Find a practice triad and sit down with an agreement. The triad where you've got one coach coaching another coach with a third one giving feedback.
Yes.
And actually, with things like Zoom where you can record, you don't need the third coach. You can go back in and look over the recording of you coaching one another. And the beauty of doing it with another coach that's not a paid client is you can actually kind of pause and say, you know what? When I asked that question, I'm not sure I got it right. What was the impact on you? What would have worked better? You can have those really constructive conversations that, actually, when I'm mentoring, I'll do it, actually, no, that's not the right question. What I need you to ask me is something that moves me forward, or you can give that live feedback in the process. And that's absolutely invaluable, because most of our clients don't really understand, they learn what coaching is, but they may not have that same depth of what's possible that another coach will have.
Yeah. I remember when I did my coach training, we had the triads, and you played each part. You were either listening, you were either being coached, or you were either the coach, and the listener got to give the feedback, obviously, for the coach and that. But we didn't stop during it. I love the idea where you're saying that you're actually allowed to stop and ask that question. How did that?
Both.
It was
interesting. Both.
Yeah, I like that though. We were never had that option, so I like it.
Yeah, there's lots of, I run a program for coaches going for their credentials, and there are loads of little exercises we can do. Sorry, I've got a cat trying to come in the door.
That's all right. I had Cocky squawking in the background.
The door squeaking. There are loads of exercises. The other thing, is just to try content-free coaching. This is one of my favorites, where you treat your triad with other coaches as a laboratory. You're in it to experiment and to get better. So have a practice at coaching somebody where you don't know this stuff. You don't know what the issue is. So literally they're just nodding. If you're moving forward, or if you're asking them to perhaps think about where they want to get at the end of the session, they just give you verbal clues. It's a brilliant exercise, because you can't get stuck in the stuff. When I listen to coaches coaching, quite often they can ask what I call nosy questions, the information questions, that, oh, who said what to who, what did that mean? Oh, those kind of questions. We don't need to know that as coaches. It doesn't matter. Our clients can keep this in our head. Our job is to move their thinking forward and help them apply their thinking and learning. So we don't need to know, really. We don't need to be an expert in international accountancy, because our job is the process and containing our clients' learning and helping them apply it. So practicing with another coach where you don't know what issue they're bringing is really difficult, but a really good way of becoming a better coach.
Where do you suggest for people, because I can understand that there's people here listening going, I'd love to have some sort of practice session, but they might be feeling a little bit isolated. For people who are not part of this, where do you suggest that they might be able to arrange or get involved with some sort of coaching practice sessions like what you're talking about?
Well, if people listening to this are key, I think that they could probably connect in your Facebook group. I've got a Facebook group called Coaching Presence, which is really focusing on the developing the competency piece. I've got a webinar coming up as well, which I think people might be interested in February. I know we'll be putting the link down in the chat. But I think, connect with, reach out, ask me, put your comments in, and we'll see what we can do. I'm sure we can connect people. I do run mentoring programs that really kind of in depth on this, but that's really for trained coaches wanting to get their credential. But there are lots of options out there. Reach out to people that you've trained with, or other coaches in this group. I think it's absolutely it's free and it's hugely beneficial.
Yeah, I might add to people listening in that Step in the Spotlight is focused less on the actual developing the coaching skills, which is what Marianne is talking about, and more on creating that radiance and that presence in terms of being out there and showing people what you have that enables you to actually draw in and create clients. While with Mariana, it would be a good idea to join her group. So we will put a link for that, because you are focused more on developing those competencies and that. Well, I'm kind of saying I'm not going to deal with the coaching skill and competency because I know that there's plenty of other great people like Mariana taking care of that. What I want to do is make sure you're getting clients. So that all these great skills that Mariana will be, showing and teaching and helping you to develop, you can then go and use them on real clients. So you can see how this is just a great way to bring all this together. This is why I love it, because I believe it's a duty to our future clients that we are actually developing our coaching skills as well.
Absolutely. You know what? We are a great, it's a great team up, because the Florida trip, the basement trip, your work is one of the duties. Building our business is one of the duties that we identified it takes to be a professional coach. Being a good coach is one of the duties. There's a whole package of them, and it's the landscape of being a professional coach. And I don't think, when I went to Florida, I've been coaching for well over 10 years, and it still hadn't really dawned on me. I kept getting it wrong. I actually, this morning, thinking about talking to you, I was reminded, I don't know if you've ever seen the video clip of a Shetland pony trying to come out of its stable in the snow.
Yeah, I think I have.
It's kind of, it sees that the doors open, the Shetlands are seeing the snow, and it's very cautious, and then it suddenly makes this great big leap and bucks around it. He doesn't know what it is, and then the overreaction. That was me stepping out of training college. When I first trained to be a coach, it took ages. I wasted loads of money. I didn't know what to do. I chucked money and time in the wrong direction. And finally, I got this overarching picture of, oh God, yeah, this is actually what it takes. It's more than just coaching.
Yep.
I think there's a big difference between learning to coach and learning to become a coach.
So in a nutshell for people, what does it take? You'll probably have to repeat a few things, but I just know that I'm just looking at the comments here. Content-free coaching sounds very appealing. Jody says, yes, I can see how it really is a landscape. Jody's in my brilliance realm, so I think Jody's starting to learn. Because Jody's starting out, she's doing her coaching as well. And in the brilliance realm, we don't touch the coaching skills. It is all about the other stuff. And I think Jody's starting to pull everything together, just like you were talking about.
Yeah, the Shetland. What does it take? It takes an understanding of good coaching. It takes the development of your coaching skills. It takes knowing how to build the business. Your stuff, Vanessa. You can't coach. You can't coach unless you've got clients, and that's that's a bit about knowing where to find your clients, and it's about how you present yourself as a coach, who you are, your radiance.
Yeah, it's that message, that vibe, everything that's going to attract them. But
Yeah,
even when we're doing that, we still need to honor those clients that are paying us, particularly for the life coaches and all that
yeah,
sort of stuff, where you are really doing that in-depth work and be good coaches.
absolutely. And we've got the the self-care bit is an important part, and then there's all the other stuff, the admin side of things. Actually, that takes up time, so there's a whole raft of different duties, and it's just realizing that you need to do all of them, and how are you going to balance that? Because if you don't get the balance right, you're going to be working all the hours under the sun, and you're not going to be living the life that you probably wanted.
So on point there, because I did the coach mentoring for some time, where I was a mentor for the new students, and that I did train them on their coaching skills or mentor
Mm,
them. And a couple of things that I found that were very, very common for people coming in as a coach. One, they thought they were just going to go in and just help people. They were just going to spend
yeah,
their days helping people. So the business side, many of them absolutely lacked any business ideas. And so there were actually several different parts to the course that we were in. You could either choose just to do coaching only, or you could choose to do another, more up level course, and that taught some of the business side of stuff as well. So I think a lot of them come into coaching thinking I want to escape, my 9 to 5 job or the rat race and all that. And I'm just going to have a great time just helping
yeah,
people and coaching people, without the realization that you're coaching at the end of it. If you actually want to keep on doing it, just not as a hobby or just with a couple of clients, it does have to have some business skills, knowledge
absolutely.
aspect to it as well. So I think that is one that's a big awakening for quite a portion of people coming into coaching.
No, definitely. There's a whole one of these duties around it, because I think people forget. They forget it. You are running a business, and that takes time. And yes, you can outsource some of it, but you really need to be established before you do that, else you're making a loss. It's a hobby. It's not a business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, you know, it's lovely to meet these nice people, but actually, being a coach in itself is, if you're going to be a good coach, being a coach is expensive. I invest a lot in my professional development,
Mm.
and that's something that people forget. That actually taking time for that is important as well.
On that note, which is an interesting one, where it actually takes some money to be a coach as well,
Yeah,
and also invest in yourself and your professional development. I think there's, a couple of sides, a couple of different areas to invest in your own development when becoming a coach. And one, of course, is developing your coaching skills. And of course, the other is the business marketing side of things.
yeah.
But of course, if you can get them all together, that's cool. Um, what do you think? And I probably put you on the spot here, but I'm never afraid to ask the questions. What do you think of people who actually come into coaching but have never actually developed any true coaching skills, or just decide I'm going to be a coach?
I don't think they're coaching. I think that most of them are. I think most of them are influencers.
Yeah.
They are selling a lifestyle, and I actually don't believe some of the. I don't believe some of what they're pretending to. I don't believe some of the revenue that they're talking. I well, if they're true, there's a lot of gullible people out there, because it takes a long. Coaching takes some skill, and it's not I think some of them are actually just marketing themselves, saying that they can help you make a lot of money. There's actually it's that is marketing or influence, isn't it? It's not coaching, because
Mm,
coaching isn't telling. That's one thing.
mm,
It's not. And learning how to learning how to coach takes some time, and it takes some time and practice and hard work. Actually, it's a nice journey, but it's a big investment. And it's not just, you can't just read a book and learn it. It's like, I think my fob off before I went to Florida about weight was that I could just kind of, oh yeah, exercise, yeah, should do that sometime, eating healthily, should do that sometime. You have to actually do it. Coaching is the same. You can't just read a coaching textbook. You have to actually coach, get some feedback, read back over what you've done, listen back over what you've done, refine it, practice it, build the muscle.
I'd have to say, as I said, when I was doing my coach training, which is some time ago now, 10 years, so it's been a while. And I must admit, I don't use my coaching skills as much now, being, I'm more like mentoring and showing rather than actual coaching. But I do know traditional, proper coaching. And one of the things that was of the most benefit for me out of the course I did, and I did quite an intensive course. It was quite a few years, the course that I did. It wasn't just a quick, you know, become a coach overnight with my internet certificate type of thing. It was actually a very extensive course. But one of the things, I'd say the thing that I valued the most, that I got the most from, was again what we mentioned earlier, the triad sessions, those practice
Yeah,
sessions. And then we did them amongst ourselves as students, and then we actually had what I ended up doing in the future and becoming was the mentor to listen in and give
yeah,
the extra feedback. That was the most valuable thing for me, as a new coach and as a learner coach, out of anything, was those mentor
absolutely.
sessions. Mm.
It's, I've been running this program for people wanting to get their ICF credentials for quite some years now. And I used to do it where we had a whole day face to face in a hotel room, and then we went off. And I realized when I looked at the feedback, there was one point of the day where people had triad work and they got observed and they gave one another feedback. That was the bit of the whole day that scored highest. So I've completely changed
Oh,
my program now, and it's
yep,
it's less contact. It's the practice piece. That's
yep,
how you become a better coach. You practice, which is why all the big accrediting bodies ask you to have X number of hours coaching under your belt after your training. So you have your certificate from your training, and then accreditation is different. It's an internationally recognized thing based on your training and all the practice.
yep,
Because you can't just, it's not just a cognitive thinking thing that you learn the principles. You have to embody it.
yep.
And that's the shift.
So if someone has gotten into coaching, but they do feel that perhaps they haven't got their training yet, it would be perfect to come along to you, wouldn't it? Because they can learn this stuff, can't they?
Yes, I mean, I don't train coaches, funnily enough. I take them from training to the next level.
Mm.
So what I would suggest if you haven't had training is look for an accredited training. I said I'm an ICF coach, an International Coaching Federation coach, but there are a couple of other really big recognized bodies. There's the Association of Coaching and the European Mentoring and Coaching Council. Those are the big three to look for. Training with that stamp on it will set you in the right direction for properly accredited coaching and that journey. I know certainly in Ireland and America, now if you want to coach in a large organization, it's a prerequisite. You don't get a foot in the door unless you're accredited. That's not the same as certified. An
Yeah,
accredited coach is an internationally, you've had
yeah,
it's international standard. So it's the next stage up. And that's what I would focus on.
yeah.
But try it on for
So if
size,
anyone
try
is
a
out,
coach. I did evening classes. Sorry. I was just saying I
I
did
keep
evening
going.
classes to start with, evening classes to start with. And I just thought, do you know what? I really love this. And then the person leading the evening class that wasn't accredited just said, if you are interested in becoming a coach, and I looked at the different bodies and I went for the hardest because I'm a nerd, the most rigorous. But that's how I made the decision. But and also at the time, the International Coaching Federation had this vision for in support of humanity flourishing. I love that. It's my values, so that's why I chose them.
Yep.
So have a bit of research and look, but an international accreditation.
Yep. I just want to put it out there, like I'll be honest, to be a coach, there's no rule to say you actually have to be trained in this. So
No,
anyone can come in.
not in all countries. There is a professional standard in some
Oh,
countries.
is there? That's good
You
that's
have to have
interesting and good to
there is
hear.
some
What other
licensing in
countries
some
do you know?
countries. No, but I know sometimes you have to actually have a license to practice as well. So yes, and I know that the International Coaching Federation is resistant to this idea of that you have to. I'm not quite sure of the background of that, but there's a whole load of politics around it. But there's the market's built one. The market's built the need itself because of the proliferation of the number of coaches. You know, I'm on a coaching platform as well. You have to have an accreditation to be accepted onto that coaching platform. For all of the civil service work in Ireland, that's a tender process. You have to be accredited, and for any of the large organisations now. So the market's built its own requirement without it being necessarily, in most countries, a legal requirement.
So I'd say to people kind of listening, and you're thinking, well, I've just come in a coach and I haven't done any training. There's nothing to say that you can't enter, but I think it's probably a good idea to really look at yourself and really decide, what type of coach do I want to be? And if you are really serious about what you're going to be delivered, I think, you know, just starting with some form of good training and then building on that. I feel that's important over time. I'm not saying you have to slam everything all in one and spend, you know, so much money all in one hit, but it is about making the conscious decision for those of you listening and deciding, am I serious about this, and what do I really want to be delivering to my people? And I think that will then help you set your benchmarks about what sort of training you want to take, how much, what you want to get, all this sort of stuff. I also feel it's really important, something that we brought up just a bit earlier, Mariana, was to know the difference between actually coaching, which, as you said, we don't want to project our stuff onto them, and also what, you know, telling and mentoring and being a consultant and all that stuff is. So sometimes there's a very skewed blurry line between that. So being aware of that and where you're placing themselves. And also I'd say, and you touched on this in regards to the influencers that are more influencers rather than coaching. And I do think that that's a good distinction, a good way to put it. So as you're coming into this business, especially online, more than offline, but because the online space has a lot of scope for it, really know, am I setting myself up as a coach, or am I wanting to set myself up as an influencer and a marketer? And when you know that difference, you will then be able, because there's, I'm going to say it out straight, and I'm not going to be shy in saying it, there's a whole different separate ethics between those two spaces. And you need to know where you sit. Because when you're over here as an influencer in that, the development of your coaching skills may not be important to you. There's other stuff going on. But when you are really saying, I really want to coach, don't be fooled by these guys over here. They're operating in a different space. That's just what I want to say. So know where you want to be. And if you want to be over in this space, by all means, go over there and learn it there. But if you want to be in this space where you want to do true coaching and seriously help people and develop your skills, then you know who to follow or to work with over here in this space. So a lot of people come in and think that the industry is all one and the same. So if they see the six-figure internet marketing guy, they think he's coaching, and then they see someone who's doing something else over here and they think, well, there's a coach too, and they put them all in the same bracket. Know that it's very, very different. There is a big divide between those two places. When you know where you sit, please don't feel you need to go and follow the six-figure guy. You can build your practice and become a really good, competent, ethical coach. Now, if that's not your gig and you don't want to be there, you just want to go and try and make quick money or something, then by all means go over here to the influencers.
You've said a couple of really important things there. One of the things that you've just mentioned is ethics. And ethics is key to this. You know, I'm a part of a professional body which has a very clear code of ethics. And I think that's possibly why accreditation is important now, because it's shortcut for anybody buying coaching from you to say, you know, actually, this is my code of conduct. As a member of this organization, I agree to this. And it sets out what coaching is and what coaching isn't, and what I can do and I can't do. And it's there in black and white for anybody to see. And if as a coach I get, you know, reported, I could lose my credential. So that's probably why accreditation for some people is important. Having said that, there are some wonderful coaches out there that have never had any training.
Exactly.
You know,
Mm.
But I think it's today in the way the market's going, and there's a plethora of people pretending that they're great coaches.
Mm.
Because of that, it helps you set yourself apart. So that's what I would say. Yes, of course, there are some wonderful coaches that are very intuitive and they work in a really great ethical way. But actually, it's harder to get your get your voice heard, I think, in a very crowded marketplace as a proper coach without it these days. I think that times have changed.
I think that's something that you've mentioned too, which a lot of people are afraid to say, and that is, I'm going to let everyone know. I started in this game 10 years ago. Here in Australia, there weren't that much of us. There's still plenty of Americans. I
Yeah,
don't know about Europe's, but 10 years ago here in Australia, there wasn't that many of us. There is now, it's such a big growing industry. There's so many people coming into the industry. And I think one of the ways to stand out and make sure that you are actually bringing in clients, not only because you create a great influential platform, which is what I help clients do, coaches do, but also because you're getting great referrals and everything because of this reason, you are a better coach. And I think that's important.
yes. It's a line of my work, the mentoring side of my work, I don't really have to advertise because it's word of mouth.
Yeah.
So by being good at it, people come to me, so that it starts to pay off. We all know that to sell a service like coaching, people have to know you and like you and trust you, and if you give a poor service, people aren't going to come back and they're not going to say, you know what, I've had a great experience, you should go to this person. That doesn't happen. And that bit of marketing is gold dust. The referrals and the testimonials, because it happens for you, and it doesn't happen unless you're good at your job.
Yeah. I remember probably a year or so ago now, I was talking to an elderly, he's kind of mid 60s maybe, typical old farmer guy out
51.
here, typical old farmer guy out here in the, I'm almost getting there soon, so I shouldn't say they're too elderly, but typical old farmer guy out here in the central west of where I live of Australia. And he said, what do you do? And I said, look, I show coaches how they can get more known, build that trust, build a platform so that they actually get more clients. And he went, coaches, huh? I said, yeah. And he went, I had a coach, and he said, I hated it. All she did was tell me what to do. I would never, ever go to another coach ever again. And I said to him, that sounds like you had a wrong coach who didn't really understand coaching. But what that person did by not developing their skills and truly understanding coach, because he said, she just told me how to live my life. And we could say maybe he had a reluctance to be coached, which is some of the argument that I will hear when I tell this story. But knowing this particular gentleman, and I have had a little bit to do with it, I don't feel there was a reluctance to be coached at all, but he certainly won't be told what to do on the other hand either. So that person would just won't have bar coaching after that experience. So I feel it's kind of sad because that person that coached him, I think, has come in not really understanding her role, which is disappointing.
Yeah, one of the basic fundamental things about coaching is that your clients are resourceful and whole. This is you may not agree with them. I think if you fundamentally don't agree with a client, you shouldn't probably be working with them. But their knowledge of their situation is better than yours. You don't know what they need to do. And actually, if you tell people, they switch off. There's a whole load of kind of research about neuroscience that sort of shows what happens if you tell people stuff. The evoking awareness piece is, okay, it's put it on the table. You're not feeling very well and you're smoking 60 a day. It's up to them to go, oh, yes, it's not your job to say you shouldn't be smoking 60 a day because you're there as a coach. You're not there as a lifestyle consultant or an anti-smoking campaigner. There's a different approach. It's a kind of, how can you make yourself healthier? What do you need to do? What would you like to address? What's important to you in this? Those are the kind of questions you'd be asking. It's certainly not. I know my dad, bless him, if I sort of even go towards what did you have for lunch today kind of conversations, I get the don't you patronize me. It has immediate kind of the shutters closed. There's no going there. So I can just imagine your
You're
farmer.
my old farmer friend.
Yeah, I'm with him. I don't like it. It's the same as me and the weight. The weight stuff. I knew for years and years and years I needed to do some more about weight, but it just didn't really hit home until it was actually that sitting in a room thinking, do you know what? It doesn't project well. I'm not looking after myself. I need to be congruent here. Yeah.
Yep. I'll give you a couple of comments and then we'll end off, and I'll just read out a couple of comments, and we'll get you just to recap some of these things, some of these very quickly, just bullet point, some of the things that we need to do to become a better coach. But just a comment from William, he said they had practice sessions and instructor feedback. He said, in my schooling, we didn't have this sort of training. It was practice session, instructor feedback. So I'm assuming you're saying you had the practice session and instructor feedback, William. And Gita has said, so good to emphasize the difference between coaching and influencing in moving forward. And I do think it's an area people need to be aware of. Am I actually being a coach? Or am I being an influencer and showing and telling? Do I want to be a combination of both, which I'll admit many of my people come to me and they want to be serious, true coaches, but they also want to have that influence as well. So you can actually merge them together.
Yeah.
But do know there is a big divide where some people are just saying, I'm just going to be an influencer. So there's no sort of understanding of what coaching is. I just wanted to point that out. But you most definitely, as a highly competent coach, can also become an influencer.
One hopes.
And you can when you start working with me and you start to figure out how to do it. And if you have just gone down the influencer line and we're giving it a label, you might have thought it was the coaching line, and we're kind of saying, well, it's not really. And you are saying, well, maybe I do need to lift my game a bit here and understand what it is I'm actually saying I'm doing. By all means, Mary, what would your advice be? Get a bit of training and then you take them next level, don't you?
Invest in your development. So train, practice, and you can do some of that on your own. You can just listen back, take some time to think, what went well, what didn't go well, what can I do better next time?
I love that. Just as a basic start to understanding your sessions and what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just record and listen back. Record with permission, of course, remember. And Mariana said that, record with permission, and then you don't do anything else with it.
And you delete it straight away afterwards, because that's all part of it. Yeah. And you hold it securely. Yeah. Record, listen back. Do you know what would have happened if I just asked that question? What did I miss out on? What underlying theme was going on there? And the other one, I think, which because you're a beginner coach, is what was going on in my head when I heard all this that I didn't say out loud.
Cool.
And what difference would that have made if I'd actually named it or, said it out loud? What was I thinking? Was I enabling here? Was I just going along with this? Yeah, this is great. You're going to do this. You're going to give them, blah, 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 but you don't actually say it. What was going on there?
And that's where I say, that's where I think some of the less experienced coaches take a little bit of time to develop that particular skill you're just talking about there, Mary. And because I know that, it can take a little time to develop that particular skill.
I told you about that story about me. It was about a month or two ago where I had the can't wait to take this to supervision conversation with myself. And then I was like, no, and I named it, what was going on for me. So, we all do it. And that's why, we can do the self-reflective stuff, but actually working with somebody else is important as well, because that's your role to name it for the other coach in the room.
So they were a couple of the first two ones that we dealt with. A quick bullet point of some of the other things that we brought up to become a better coach, if you remember what we were talking about.
Understand the landscape, that coaching is only one of the duties that we need to do. We need to build our business with someone like you, Vanessa. We need to develop our skills. We need to look after ourselves, and we need to run the business. It doesn't just run itself. That takes time and investment. To understand the landscape and work out how you're going to prioritize, where you're going to invest your time and energy. And it doesn't just stop. We don't just do our training and become a coach. It's a continual journey. I'm thinking about my next level of development now. How am I going to invest my time? And actually, I've decided that I'm not going to do too many more training courses. I don't need to learn more stuff. I don't need more information in my head. I need to build the muscle and continue to build the muscle. So I'm going to continue to work with mentors and supervisors to deepen what I know, because it's the practice piece that's important.
I love that. Like, instead of doing the next course after the next course after the next
Yeah,
course and keep bringing in. And I think this is crucial information for anyone who's just looking at the next course, the next course, the next
yeah,
course. Each new course is not necessarily going to make you better. It's actually utilizing what you're learning. And like you said, building the muscle. And that's in all aspects of coaching. It's in your area, which is around developing those skills, and of course building and moving from that. And then in my area, well, which is about, getting yourself out there and getting clients, because I have a lot of people doing the same thing, Mariana, where they'll decide, I need to do the YouTube training, then I need to do the LinkedIn training,
yeah.
and I'm still
And you
doing
just,
nothing. Yeah. So then I'll
yeah,
go and do
yeah.
the Facebook ads training. And after I've done the Facebook ads, and then I'll work with some fancy ass coach, and he'll teach me a whole new stuff. And still my
And I've
LinkedIn
not actually
sucks.
implemented any of it.
Yeah. And still I'm not doing Facebook ads, and they suck. And yeah, take what you're learning and implement it. That's
Yeah.
and I don't want to over plug or anything here, because I
No, but
really
that's
want
it,
you
isn't it?
guys,
That's
to look
life.
at what Marianne is doing. But that is one of the aspects of what I work on in the brilliance realm. It's like, I'm not there to train them more stuff. I'm there to say, what are you not doing with what you already know?
Yeah,
So I love that
exactly.
you brought that up.
No, I think
Anything
that's key to
else?
life.
Anything else that they have to be a better coach? So we are, looking at it as a whole of a landscape as well. Implementing, we don't necessarily.
Implementing's key, practice is key. And the thing about information, I work with another coach sometimes, and he would say some coaches are so busy in their toolkit, with their technique in their toolkit, rummaging around, that they don't see what's in front of them. So,
Okay.
focus on your client. That's key. It's not the stuff that it's your client and what they know. And it's that conversation. It's listening. It's evoking awareness. It's your coaching presence. This is what's important, you and your client. That's it.
Yep. So that's it in a nutshell. Mariana and I will be back over the next few weeks, quite a few occasions. I think we're pretty much every Thursday at this time, Mariana. And we may be popping in on a Tuesday as well, to have conversations like this. By all means, ask questions in the threads or even in the group if you want to ask more of Mariana. That's her gig there. So ask. I'd also suggest, I think we'll put the link up, joining Mariana's Coaching Presence Facebook group as well, because your focus is different
The skill
on a
set of
whole,
coaching
than mine is here in the Spotlight group. So it's a wonderful compliment if you are in the Spotlight group, which is all very much about, how you are attracting clients, how you're creating your vibe, your messaging, to also be in a place where you can also talk about the skill set behind as well as a coach. So we'll put that up as well. And of course, remember, Mariana will be having a webinar in the very near future as well. We will tell you more about that as we progress over the next week or two.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we better get that link to the Facebook group up, and I hope people go in there just to discuss skill set.
Absolutely.
And really understand what the coaching is all about, getting plenty of thank yous and taking actions and everything. So thanks everyone for listening in today. Thank you for being a part of it. And as I said, we will be showing up. I really want to talk about the skill set and what we need to be doing as better coaches. I think it's something that needs to be talked about within our industry. And Mariana is here to give you good, solid guidelines on how to actually do it, no matter where you are as a coach. So if you're just starting out and you just decided to be a coach, but you didn't think this stuff was important, I hope that this has raised it for you, that maybe possibly it just might be. And also, if you are experienced coaching, of course, I'm sure there's always extra new stuff to learn and action and implement as well. I know there is for me.
I was going to say there certainly is for me.
All right. I know. I actually never stop learning. Talking of horses, I've just signed up for 2 new horse courses that I'm doing over the next 12 months.
Ooh,
And it is the same thing, Marianne, and what we were talking about. It's like I want to race through all the modules, but I'm like, no, I just need to implement module 1 first.
I know. That's the thing, isn't it? It's like, God, yeah, I have to I can't just flick through the pages. I have to do the exercises as well. It's
Yeah.
like at least we
Yep.
know that about ourselves.
Yeah. I have to creep through it. It's going to take me 12 months to develop this horse of mine to this training that we're doing. I will do the same thing, creep through it. All right, everyone, we'll see you later. I'm just going to stop the live stream now. And thanks for being a part of this. And I do hope that you will join us on further conversations around developing our coaching skill set. And of course, call on Mary Anna here in the group, and of course, pop into her group as well. Is it Coaching Presence or The Coaching
Yes,
Presence?
coaching presence.
Coaching Presence. We'll put the link up as well. Okay, bye for now. We will catch you later. Let's stop this.